Reigning queen of hip-hop soul, Mary J. Blige has dealt with her fair share of relationships. One notably being her years-long and very much public, very much turbulent relationship with Hailey back in the early 90s. The relationship was borderline toxic, and Mary has spoken about the dysfunction over the years. Scandals, cheating, verbal and physical abuse, as well as an outside baby, all crept their way into that relationship until Mary decided that enough was enough. The pair came to an end in the late 90s, and Mary's hope of finding her one true pairing had dwindled until the year 2000, when producer and a newly divorced Kendu Isaacs would be introduced to Mary through a mutual friend. The duo tied the knot in 2003, and Mary would go on to credit Kendu for keeping her afloat above the depth pits of substance abuse and self-sabotage. That is until their very much public and very much nasty split in 2016, when Mary had exposed that her man of 13 years plus had been involved in a long-term affair with someone whom Mary once considered a friend. Fat, old, and washed up were just some of the verbal taunts Mary says she experienced during her marriage. And to make matters even worse, an international tour and 2 albums had become building blocks, aiding Mary in a $30,000 court-ordered spousal support payout, in which she says left her homeless. Kendu Isaacs went from being her saving grace to being nothing short of a sworn enemy. Was it true love all along, or was he just a con artist looking for a come-up? Following the public and, might I add, humiliating breakup from an on-again, off-again relationship with Jodeci's KC, Mary, as you'd expect, wasn't in the best headspace. For those of you who don't know, Mary's relationship with KC was, in short, a hot mess. Some may even say physically abusive, taking into account the connect the dots information she's given during interviews where she's spoken about an ex almost taking her life. Although names weren't spilled, many alluded to the ex being KC. After being proposed to, just to be handed the Uno reverse card and told on national television that her and KC weren't even together by KC himself. As you'd expect, Mary left completely devastated. This on top of KC allegedly having an outside baby that Mary fans know she had sung about in her '99 single, Your Child. I say all of this to say that the entire situation between her and her first real love really messed her up. After the pair officially ended things sometime in '97, a few years would pass before the void in her heart would be filled, at least for the meantime. Working as an up-and-coming small-town producer and manager, Kendu Isaacs had been working on a duet with rapper Queen Latifah in the year 2000 and was contemplating on which female vocalist to add to the song. Latifah had been the one to suggest that Mary be added in the song. Phone calls were made, and they'd eventually get a hold of Mary and her team, who stated that she could only record in Detroit since she was on tour at the time. That was no problem for Latifah and Kendu, who both hopped on the closest plane to Detroit and awaited Mary in a studio. Kendu recalls Mary walking into the studio at around 3 p.m.-ish. This being the two's first time laying eyes on one another. After laying her vocals down, the trio went out to dinner, but things didn't pop off right then and there. A few months would pass before Latifah had urged Mary to give Kendu a call, and the rest was history. Newly divorced at the time of his and Mary's union, Kendu also had 3 kids prior, but to Mary, this wasn't a huge wall to work around, since she herself didn't want children at the time. After a few short years of dating, Kendu and Mary had officially tied the knot in 2003, and like literally every relationship, it was all sweet in the beginning. The two have stated that they remained abstinent for over a year until they officially wedded. Given Mary's previous relationship, she wanted to make sure Kendu loved her for her and not for her status or her wealth. Little did she know, she was in for a very rude awakening. According to Kendu's kids, Mary was a wonderful stepmom. His oldest daughter, Brianna Latrice, who you probably recognize from ReTV's Growing Up Hip Hop, in specific credits Mary for basically getting her, along with her dad, out of the trenches. Mary even credited Kendu for saving her life by helping her end a decades-long feud between herself, drugs, alcohol, and depression. She later recanted all of this after their 13-year-old union came to a devastating end in 2016, and a messy years-long battle between the two would ensue in and outside of the courts. It later be revealed that the reason for the divorce was due to Mr. Kendu creeping on the low with aspiring upcoming singer Starshell, who just so happened to have also been signed to Mary's own label, Matriarch Records. Not only was she signed to the label, but Mary made it her mission to boost her profile, taking her under her wing to red carpet events and even featuring her in some of her music. Not only was Kendu cheating with Starshell, allegedly, he allegedly was creeping with numerous others and had spent over $420,000 of Mary's hard-earned coins on supposed travel charges, aka I'm flying out to see my side piece while you're on tour. But we'll do the politically correct thing here and go with travel charges. During a segment with Neo, you can hear Mary inform him not to work with you-know-who, Starshell, while she was there, or notify her about anything Mary had going on, because to Mary, Starshell was her Becky with the good hair. Word to Beyonce. On top of the alleged cheating, creeping, and scheming, it was said that Kendu had been riding around and getting it in a Mercedes that Mary had prepaid the lease on, and that he had refused to return her Grammys and other awards. Isaacs had originally sought $130,000 a month in spousal support in order to sustain his lifestyle, and insisted that anything below that amount wouldn't suffice. A judge ultimately insisted Mary give Kendu $30,000 in spousal support instead of his preferred $100K plus that he felt entitled to. In 2017, Kendu pretty much asked, "What I'm supposed to do with $30,000?" He had requested that the alimony be bumped from $30K to $65K, stating that Mary's public discussion of her divorce, along with her album Strength of a Woman, inspired by the messy union, ruined his reputation, making it difficult for him to find work. To add a little razzle-dazzle, he'd claimed that the stress of the entire situation left him hospitalized. You really can't make this stuff up. Note, he's never publicly denied any of Mary's claims. If it isn't obvious by now, Mary was clearly the breadwinner in the relationship and was burdened with all of their debts over the years, which totaled around $10 million. On top of having to pay for Kendu's attorney fees and other payments estimating around $235,000, Mary had to go on tour in order to pay all of her fees and alimony. Things got so bad at one point that she'd end up practically homeless and stayed with producer Jimmy Iovine and his wife for some time. Despite the dark days and thoughts that follow, not everything was in shallow waters. Acting, if you didn't know, is one field of Mary's lengthy resume that she's known for, and in 2017, she'd star in the film Mudbound, achieving her first ever Academy Award nomination. During an interview with Angie Martinez, Mary further went into detail about touring in order to pay alimony and said she didn't have enough sometimes to pay her own rent. While her previous album, Strength of a Woman, was a musically expressive journey told through the lens, or in this case, the voice, of the painful process of divorce, her most recent album, Good Morning Gorgeous, is all about the aftermath of the divorce, self-love, and glowing TF up. Her song, Rent Money, although not exactly about being able to pay her actual rent, is more so a metaphor since she felt as though she had lost herself through all the chaos and was left drained in every which way. So it was time for somebody to pay. During another interview with Harper's Bazaar, Mary admitted that the divorce made her stronger than ever. It forced her to look within for love and healthy validation instead of seeking love from outside of herself. After so many years going from album to album, making the wrong decisions, making mistakes and everything just going downhill, it wasn't until 2016 when I got out of that divorce that I realized I've got to stop looking for love in people and making these mistakes. Until you love yourself the right way or learn how to develop that self-love, things are just going to keep going bad. That was pretty recently when I really caught on. I got played. I got suckered. I have to keep smiling and keep my spirits up because this is designed to kill me. Whether Kendu was truly in it to win Mary's heart or a wolf in sheep's clothing, one thing for sure, two things for certain. Life will keep sending you the same lesson over and over in different forms till you eventually get the hint and pass the test. Mary seems to not only have found the key, but the entire answer sheet. All in all, I think we can all agree that we just want her to be happy. No pun intended. Do you think Mary should be paying spousal support? Let us know what you think in the comments section down below. And stay tuned for more true celebrity stories.